بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلما دخلوا على يوسف آوى إليه أبويه وقال ادخلوا مصر إن شاء الله آمنين ورفع أبويه على العرش وخروا له سجدا وقال يا أبت هذا تأويل رؤياي من قبل قد جعلها ربي حقا وقد أحسن بي إذ أخرجني من السجن وجاء بكم من البدو من بعد أن نزغ الشيطان بيني وبين إخوتي إن ربي لطيف لما يشاء إنه هو العليم الحكيم صدق الله العظيم. Respected brothers and my dear young friends, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the part where Yaqub alayhi salatu wassalam and his entire family are going to undertake the journey to Egypt. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَى يُوسُف, that when they entered the presence of Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, Awa ilayya bawai, he, Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, made his parents stay with him. وَقَالَتْ كُلُوا مِصْرَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ آمِنِينَ, and he said, enter Egypt in safety if Allah wills. So on this side, Yaqub alayhi salatu wassalam, along with all his family members, his sons, his grandchildren, approximately, some say there were 93, others say there were 72 people. They undertake the journey from Canaan in Syria, Palestine, to Misr, Egypt. And on this end, on this side, Yusuf alayhi salatu makes preparation to receive them and to welcome them. And this is how the migration of Yaqub alayhi salatu happened. And if you remember initially in the beginning, I mentioned the reasons why Surah Yusuf was revealed. Some say the Sahaba radiyallahu ajma'in asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that give us a story, mention a story to us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Others say that the kuffar of Makkah, the mushriks of Makkah, went to Ghaliban Medina Munawwara to see the Yahuds, the Jews, and to ask them regarding the truthfulness of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they said, ask him regarding the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and how did Banu Israel end up in Egypt? How did Banu Israel end up in Egypt when they were in Sham, when they were in Palestine? And this ayat mentions how they ended up in Egypt, that Yusuf ﷺ called them all over to Egypt. So anyway, this was something that Rasulullah ﷺ did not know beforehand. And this was some knowledge that only the Yahud knew. So they knew that only a Yahudi, only a Jew would know this, or a true prophet. And this ayat and this story proves the reality and the truth of our Prophet ﷺ. Anyway, Yusuf ﷺ goes out from the city of Makkah into the outskirts. And some say he went with a group of approximately 4,000 people, all high-ranking officials, and some very important people of his cabinet, etc. And they go out. Others say that it was a day of joy and celebration for the whole of Egypt. Everybody came out to receive them, that the Aziz Misr's parents are coming today. And you can imagine the happiness that the Aziz Misr's parents are coming, and he was known to be a very respectable person. So anyway, Yusuf ﷺ goes out, and they say he made some kind of a camp, like a reception area, so that they can come and they can sit, rest, because they're going to undertake a long journey, and the food provisions, etc. were made. Yaqub ﷺ arrives, and you can imagine the feelings at every step as they get closer, the urge to see each other, the love over spilling out from their hearts, and the emotions that are racing through their hearts and minds, and the feelings that are all gathering. And as both of them get closer, father and son, for us we fall short to comprehend this scene, because we have never seen or experienced such a thing, where our father and son have been away from each other for 40 years, and who have deep love for each other. And a time and a day come where they are going to be reunited. But anyway, Yusuf salam is waiting for his father. Yaqub salam comes on a mount, and as he comes, Yusuf salam is waiting for him. Yaqub salam dismounts and comes off the mount, comes off his animal that he was mounting on. And all of a sudden, you can imagine they meet, they greet, hug, cry, embrace each other, and then they have a talk, etc. And at that time, it's mentioned that they were both crying out of happiness, crying out of seeing each other. And Mufassirin said Jibreel salam came down and he said to Yusuf, Yaqub salam, that today is a very significant day. Today is a very great day. Today, a day is such that your happiness is the happiness of all the angels in the skies. And your crying has made the angels of the sky cry as well. Both of you crying today has made the whole sky, the angels in the sky also cry. Mufassir mentioned that Yusuf had made camps, and the camp that he had made for himself, this is where he made Yaqub and his mother stay there for the ayat فَلَمَّا أَوَى إِلَيْهِ أَبَوَيْهِ, that he gave space to them, meaning in this camp, so the other brothers and the extended family were given different areas to stay in, but Yusuf father, parents were exclusively given space next to Yusuf salam. And you can imagine they must have sat and absorbed in each other's company, and they must have talked. And then once they had taken some rest, had food, etc., the journey to Egypt takes place. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Yusuf says to his father that udkhulu Misr inshallah aminin, that enter Egypt in a state of peace, in a state of happiness, and if Allah wills. And some say that the famine had started and 2 years had passed. And in Canaan, it was very difficult. So Yusuf was pointing towards this, that udkhulu Misr inshallah aminin, that enter Palestine, Egypt in peace, meaning that now that you are entering Egypt, there's another 5 years of famine left, there's another 5 years of drought left. But don't worry, you will not go through the difficulty, and there will be no stress in regards to food and provisions. This worry and concern of yours, you can put that to rest. Inshallah, in Egypt there will be no concern for food, there is ample food. And others mention that when he said inshallah wa aminin, he was pointing towards the fact that the days of separation, the days of difficulty, the days of grief that both father and son were going through, and the enmity that the brothers had all ended, and now days of peace and harmony were coming. The days of tranquility, and as a whole family will be all reunited, and we will be staying together. So enter Egypt with peace. And some say the teaching that we can take from this ayat is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the quote of Yaqub Yusuf where he says inshallah aminin, that he brings the word inshallah, that whenever we are talking about a future task or action that we are going to do tomorrow or the day after or in the future, then we should always depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. No matter how convincing, no matter how strong, no matter how definite our means and resources are. We might have everything. We might have the best car. The roads might be absolutely perfect. But you can't say for sure tomorrow I'm going to London. Because only Allah knows what's going to happen in the morning. Tomorrow there could be floods. And you might not end up going to London. Tomorrow I'm going to do this. What's the guarantee you're going to do it? What's the guarantee you're even going to live for tomorrow? That's why Mufassirin say that you should always depend your actions on the will of Allah. And how should you do it? You should bring the word inshallah before the word. Just like Allah, Yusuf said, inshallah aminin. He didn't say aminina inshallah. So whenever you're going to say something, inshallah I'm going Umrah tomorrow. Inshallah I'm going to be going to London tomorrow. Inshallah I will be going Leicester tomorrow. So inshallah comes first and then you say the action. But by chance if you forget, then Mufassirin and Fuqaha say that you should, if you forget to say it, then وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ إِذَا نَسِيتَ. In 15th part Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقُولَ لَنْ شَيْءٍ فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا يَشَاءَ. Don't say regarding something that you're going to do tomorrow that I'm going to do it unless you depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. وَاذْكُرْ رَبَّكَ إِذَا نَسِيتَ. And by chance if you forget, then as soon as you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make mention. So if you forget to say it, then I'm going Leicester tomorrow, and then you remember this, inshallah. In that case you say inshallah afterwards. So anyway, they enter Egypt and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings a snippet and a scene of what happens in the palace. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَرَفَاءَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَدًا, that he seated his parents, Yusuf salam, seated his parents on a high throne. وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَدًا, and they all, his parents, his brothers, they all bowed and fell before him in prostration. And this was out of showing respect. وَقَالَ يَا أَبَتِي هَذَا تَعْوِيلُ رُؤْيَايَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. Yusuf ﷺ then tells his father, Yaqub ﷺ, he says, "O my beloved father, هذا تأويل رؤياي من قبل." This is the interpretation of my past dream, the dream that I saw when I was young, right at the beginning of Surah Yusuf on the first page. Yaqub Yusuf ﷺ mentions that he saw a dream. Today Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made that dream a reality, a truth. So Yaqub Yusuf ﷺ is reminding his father that this is the interpretation of my past dream. قَدْ جَعَلَ رَبِّي حَقًّا, Allah has surely made it come true. وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ, and He has truly been kind to me when He removed me from the prison. وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِنَ الْبَدْوِ مِنْ بَعْدِ أَنْ نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ إِخْوَتِي, and He has also been kind to me when He has brought you from the countryside, yani of Canaan, and after Shaitan has caused trouble between me and my brothers, He has gathered us together. Inna Rabbi latiful lima yasha. Verily my Rabb plans in a very discreet manner. Verily He is all-knowing, the most wise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then starts the scene of what happens in Egypt. That now once they reach Egypt and the palace of Yusuf ﷺ, Yusuf ﷺ raises his parents onto his own place, onto his own throne, onto the throne that he used to sit on. And he made them sit on there out of respect. And you can imagine the other arrangements that he is making, and he's telling the brothers and the grandsons where to sit, and at the same time he's telling the butlers and the servants to make food and the arrangements. And you can imagine it must have been a big room where the throne was, and what kind of a room it would have been, filled with so much awe, and when the king comes in, the glory that they feel, etc. And whilst Yusuf ﷺ is trying to arrange all this, and he's trying to make them feel home and make them feel comfortable and showing his hospitality towards them, all of a sudden, all the brothers and the fathers line up and they fall in prostration. Some say that Yaqub ﷺ made them all sit in their places. Yusuf ﷺ arranged their seats, and then Yusuf ﷺ entered the room where they all sat. And Yusuf ﷺ must have come in with his robe and whatever he had to wear as Aziz Misr. And all the courtiers, all the people in the room, they fell in sajda, and seeing them, even the father and everybody fell in sajda. And some say that Yaqub ﷺ, when he saw Yusuf ﷺ, and when they saw this, just them and the brothers and the father and the mother, they all fell in sajda out of this awe and azmat and this reverence. And at that moment, Yusuf ﷺ told his father, Ya abati hada ta'wilu ya min qabl, that, oh my beloved father, this is the interpretation of my past dream. My Lord has surely made it come true. That now upon this, a question arises. And the question is that how can a makhluk do sajda before another makhluk? And that's generally nobody can do sajda before anybody. And in this instance, we are talking about a Nabi, that the person the sajda is being done for is a Nabi, Yusuf ﷺ. And the people doing sajda, amongst them one is a Nabi, Yaqub ﷺ, and the other the children of a Nabi. So how can somebody do sajda before makhluk? So before we answer this question, we need to understand that there are two types of sajda. One is called sajda ibadat, and one is sajda ta'zim. Sajda ibadat is a sajda of worship, which can only be done before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other is sajda ta'zimi, a sajda which is done out of respect. And fuqaha and mufassirin mentioned that since the time of Adam والسلام, all the way till Isa والسلام, in all of their shariahs, sajda ta'zim was permissible. When you see somebody of high esteem, respect, reverence, you can do sajda before him. Just like when we see somebody respectable, we are sat in a normal posture and a buzru comes in, all of a sudden we sit up. Or if you are sitting, we stand up, and we stand up straight, we look down, we quickly shake his hand, we embrace him, we might kiss him on the forehead. Why do we do all this? This is out of ta'zim, this is out of respect, this is out of azmat, that this is such a high person. Nobody does it that he is something to be worshipped. In the same way, when the father and Yaqub ﷺ and the children did sajda, they didn't do sajda before Yusuf ﷺ thinking he is a very high person or he is a Lord. No, this would be shirk. In fact, they did it out of ta'zim and out of awe. That subhanallah, look at the glory and splendor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has afforded him. And then the next question that arises, so that's why in our shariat, when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and the shariat of Islam came, the deen of Islam came, in our shariat, it was totally impermissible. It was totally prohibited Sajda cannot be done to anybody besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No sajda ta'zim. Because our deen is complete, is entirety, and it is the last deen. And anything that could cause shirk, anything that could even take you towards shirk, Rasulullah totally disregarded and totally prohibited it. So in our sharia, this is totally disregarded. This is totally prohibited. That's why you cannot do sajda before a peer or a buzrug or a sheikh. You can't do sajda. This will be counted as shirk. So anyway, the other thing that Mufassirin mentioned is that how come when they first met in the place of reception where Yusuf had made these camps, how come they didn't do sajda and they didn't sajda here? Hazrat Shaykh mentions that the reason being that at that time the heart was filled with love. The galba of love was there. Love had overcome them. That after so long they were meeting, that's why they were embracing, greeting, crying. And when they got to the palace and they saw Yusuf's glory and splendor, at this time the galba of azmat and reverence had overcome their heart. That's why out of this reverence and out of this ta'zim they all fell in sajda. So anyway, when they fell in sajda, Yusuf reminded his father that, oh my father, this is a dream and the vision that I had when I was young, and now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it a reality. And you can imagine that they must have been sat next to each other and having a lengthy conversation, and Yusuf has got his narrative, he's got his story to tell him, and Yaqub has got his story of how he had missed him for 40 years. And you can imagine that if he was a normal person, how he would have started, oh Abba, do you remember that one day they came to you and they came to ask you that can they take me to a jungle with them, and you give them permission. Wallah, Abba, on the way, what did they do? Do you know what they done? They hurt me, they hit me, they tortured me, and then when we got to the well, they took my clothes off, they snatched my clothes off and they threw me in the well, and then I stayed in the well for so many days, hungry, nothing to eat, I was scared, it was haunting, I was isolated, and then some people came and they took me out of the caravan, and when they were to come, the brothers came again and they said that no, I'm their slave, and they lied and they got me shackled and they sold me at a very, very cheap price. And he could have said the whole story, and this story could have lasted nights upon nights, and he could have cried and he could have made everyone cry, and he could have played with emotions. But look at the akhlaq of a Nabi. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions what he mentions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that what did Yusuf mention in this? That after he mentioned this, he brought a few parts of his life. And he said, وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ. In Yusuf's story, there were three very big incidents. Three main incidents that occurred. Number one was that he was thrown in the well. And the cruelty and the torture that the brothers showed. This was the first incident. And because of this incident, the second incident was the separation from his father for years, for 40 years, some say, for some say 80 years. The separation, this was a very sorrowful and very painful occurrence that happened. And the third greatest incident was that he was put in jail for so many years. So Yusuf was bringing these incidents, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that all three incidents, but how does Yusuf mention them? He did not mention them from the perspective of masaib and hardship and cruelty that he endured. In fact, he brings all three incidents from the perspective of shukr. And number two, he brings them not in the chronological order. He does not bring them in the correct sequence, that the cruelty of the brothers, and then the separation, and then the well, the jail. In fact, he starts with the jail, and he says, وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ. That my Allah, my Lord has been very kind to me. He has been exclusively kind to me. And out of his kindness, he took me out of the jail. So he told Yaqub that he had to go in jail. He doesn't mention that how long he had to go in jail for. He doesn't mention the difficulties, and you can imagine the difficulties. To go in jail for one day, how difficult it is. You are constrained, you can't do anything. You lose your dignity, you lose your self-respect. People have eyes on you. People might start hurling abuse at you. But Yusuf does not bring any of that. That, oh, but I was put in jail, and the nights went like this, and the food was like this, and I had to sleep on a floor like this, and there was insects. No, nothing whatsoever. In fact, he brings the part where he says, my Allah was so kind that he took me out of the jail. And when we look at this, we can imagine, look at the akhlaq and the characteristics of a Nabi. Sometimes we see in the house that the girl is married off, and after a month she comes home, and the mother and father, or just the mother and daughter, are sat at night in the rooms. And what's the gossip? Oh, I went to there and they did this to me, and then they didn't like this. I made this food and I like it, and nobody ate the food. This is our story. And we mentioned all the negatives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we don't mention any positives. And likewise, in our life as well. Oh, when I was young, I grew up like this and I had a hard time. But nobody mentions the good points. And Yaqub Yusuf filled with his whole life, filled with problems and difficulties upon difficulties, trial after trial. But when he comes to explain them, when he comes to talk about them, when he comes to make their mention, he mentions it from the side of shukr, that alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me salvation. And Mufassiri mentioned that how come he doesn't mention about the well? How come he didn't say that Allah gave me freedom and saved me from the well? He said because, number one, this was a very sensitive point. That if you have mentioned this, then memories will come back in his mind, also in the memory in the brothers' minds. And when you have come into a brother's minds, this memory of them throwing you in the well and the torture, they will become embarrassed and they become ashamed. And Yusuf had already told them that La tathriba alaykum al-yawm, that I will never bring this back on my tongue. I will never reproach you. I will never rebuke you about this. So that's why he never mentioned about the well. And then the second thing he mentions is وَجَاءَ بِكُمْ الْبَدْوِ مِنْ بَعْدِ أَنْ نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ, that my Allah was so kind that after separation, He has brought you back to me. He has reunited us. So He did not say, oh Ba, we are separated, 40 years had passed, and guess what, how the 40 years passed? Every day at night, this was the pain I was going through. No. He says, I am so grateful, Allah, that He has brought you from the countryside to me. Not that I have brought you, that, oh, I've made provisions to come to Egypt. No, Allah has brought you from the countryside. Allah has brought you from a place where provisions are less, where opportunities are less. And He has brought you to Egypt, where it's a city. There's more opportunities. Life could be more fruitful. And on top of that, He has reunited us. And then, regarding the jail, when a person has correct understanding of deen, then it becomes easy for him. Hazrat Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi was taken in jail in Malta. When it was the British Empire in India, Hazrat Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi was taken in jail and he was imprisoned in Malta for years. And also his Khadim and his special student, Hazrat Shaykh Hazrat Madri Rahmatullah alayhi. When Hazrat Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi came out of jail after so many years, and the torture he went through. They didn't go through anything minor. It was great torture. The torture they went through. And there have been kitabs written on this, how the ulama Deoband were tortured. But anyway, when he came out, and he was asked, Hazrat, what did you go through? The Shaykh Rahmatullah did not mention anything regarding the torture. He did not mention anything about the pain. In fact, he said a couplet that to a meaning that now that the ship has reached the docks, now that the ship has reached land, what use is there complaining about the ocean and what happened? Meaning, now that I am out, what's the point talking about what happened in the jail and what's the use? In fact, when he came out, he got the ulama together and he mentioned that whilst in jail, I pondered upon the state of the believers and why they are declining. And I have come to two conclusions. Number one is our ta'alluq with the Quran. As a whole, the ummah has somewhat moved away from the Quran. The Quran is not in our life practically. The Quran is not in our life in terms of recitation. And the Quran is not in our life in terms of understanding. Very few people want to understand the Quran. Very few people want to practice upon the Quran. Very few people recite the Quran. Kama haqqahu. And he said the second thing of our decline, the ummah as a whole ummah, is the disunity. The disunity that has come. There's been so many small factions, but these two I think have become the main causes of our downfall as a whole. And when you have knowledge, then you know when to apply it and when to use your knowledge. It's mentioned by Hazrat Muhammad that again there was a warrant against him, a arrest warrant for him in Nanoto or Deoband Galiban. And he went in hiding. He went in hiding for 3 days because the British had sent out a warrant for him to catch him, to imprison him. After 3 days had passed, Hazrat Muhammad was seen on the streets walking freely, aram se. So the well-wishers and the close friends said, Hazrat, the warrant is still active. Go back in hiding. They're still after you. They've not dropped the warrant. So the Shaykh Rahmatullah, as Muhammad mentioned, that no, but 3 days is sufficient. When Rasulullah went out for Hijrat from Makkah Mukarramah to Medina Munawwarah, the enemies and the mushriks of Makkah were looking for him and there was like a warrant for him. That whoever finds him will get 100 camels. And at that time Rasulullah went into Ghar Thawr and he stayed there for 3 days. So to stay in hiding for 3 days is sunnah. After Rasul moved to Medina, he carried on with his migration. That's why I went in the hiding for 3 years. So when the yaqeen was such, he didn't get caught. In fact, it is mentioned that he was sweeping the masjid, the masjid in Dawud Deoban, he was sweeping it. And the CIDs came. And he was in his lungi and he had a vest on. And they came and they said, is Mahmudul Hassan here? And you can imagine, Galiban Sheikhul Hind, I forgot who he was. So anyway, they looked for him. It could possibly be Sheikhul Hind Rahmatullah. And when they saw him, that he said, he took a step back. And then he said, he was here just a moment ago. So they thought that he must have been here talking and gone. Because they looked at him and said, this is such a skinny person. How can he be commander of the believers? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's nusrat comes. But this all happens when you have authentic knowledge. When you have firm knowledge and correct knowledge. When you have correct knowledge, then you can carry out the correct hukam and the correct injunction at the right time. So for Sheikhul Hind Rahmatullah alayhi, at that time this was the correct, that the days of pain and the days of hard difficult days have gone now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been so kind that He's released me. If He wanted, I could have stayed till the end in jail. So when he came out, people asked him, never mentioned anything. And Ghaliban read one place, I don't remember exactly where it was, but when Shaykh Rahmatullah passed away and they went to give ghusl, it is that time they realized the scars that he had on his back. They went to give him ghusl, the scars and the damage that had been done to his back through the torment and the torture, only then they realized. Throughout his life, he never mentioned anything. So anyway, so a second point that Yusuf mentioned was that he didn't mention that we were separated. In fact, he brought the shukr perspective. Allah is so kind that He has brought you here and He has united us. And then the last thing he mentioned was, that after shaitan has caused trouble between me and my brothers. That the last incident was regarding the torture and the pain and the ill treatment that the brothers did towards Yusuf. But rather than mentioning to his father that all this and they did this and they hit me in this way and they did this to me, and if they would have done this, I would have not been going in jail. In fact, he said that rather than mentioning all the unpleasant and blaming the brothers and making them feel embarrassed, he shifted the whole blame onto shaitan. He said that it was shaitan that put this, it was shaitan that deceived my brothers, and it was shaitan that made them prey to this delusion, and that's why they carried out this thing. Whatever they did to me was because of shaitan and this enmity and this hasad that grew between me and my brothers, and this ill treatment that they showed me was not because my brothers were bad. My brothers were very good. It was shaitan. Shaitan made all this happen. So they could look at his akhlaq. That even after all this, he's not blaming the brothers. In fact, he is shifting the blame away from the brothers. He is defending them and he is discharging them. And he is shifting the blame on shaitan. If shaitan wasn't there, this wouldn't happen. They would never have done this. So Yusuf is trying to use every excuse to discharge them. And if it was us, we look for every excuse to blame them. Every excuse to blame the person. Nini, if you have not done this, we would have done this. You said this, that's why this happened. And if the person even comes out with a reason and says, tell it, Job, you or shaitan fooled me. No, why did shaitan fool you? Why do you fall in shaitan's tricks for? It's still fall. We'll teach him like this. So anyway, from this you can understand the akhlaq of Nabi and how high their thoughts are and how good their thoughts are. And in the end, Yusuf then takes the whole focus towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he says, Inna Rabbi latifu lima yasha. Verily my Rabb is very subtle and very discreet in his plans. What he wills. Verily he is all knowing and he is all wise. Whatever my Allah does, at the beginning nobody knew. Going in the well and all this difficulty. Who knew that one day Allah shows the days of glory? Who knew that one day Allah will gather us all together here? And who knew that we will all be united? Mufassirin say, some ulama say, that one day when they had a moment together, Yusuf and Yaqub, this is very important, very thought-provoking point. That Yaqub and Yusuf were alone. So Yusuf asked the Abba, when we separated and I was taken away, why did you cry so much for? Why did you cry so much that you lost your eyesight? And how come you cried for 40 years? if you didn't see this one, you had yaqeen of the akhir that we will meet in the hereafter. So upon this, Yaqub gave an astonishing answer. He said that, oh my son, O Yusuf, you were snatched away from me in a very tender and a young age. You were only 7 when you were snatched away from me. And I wasn't sure if your deen would be safeguarded and protected. That's why I continually cried. And I sobbed, thinking that if you go into the wrong hands, because you're 7 years old, if you go into the hands of the wrong people, or you fall in the wrong environment, or you fall in the wrong people's company, then nor will I just be restricted from seeing in this dunya. In fact, I will never see in the hereafter as well. So that's why I was sobbing all my life. All the time I was sobbing, if I don't see him in this dunya, or if he doesn't iman, at least I will see him in Jannah and in the hereafter. But if you fell in the wrong hands, and if you fell in the wrong environment, and you fell in the wrong company, and you went the wrong way, then that means I will never see you in this dunya, and I will never ever see you in the hereafter as well. That's what made me cry the most. That's why, my dear friends, our greatest concern should be for us and for our children that this ni'mat of iman has been given to us on the plate. We have done no over the odds effort, or we have not shown Allah anything spectacular that we are worthy of it. But Allah, only through His infinite mercy and His unlimited bounties, He has given this iman to us. It's our duty, responsibility, that we preserve and protect this iman right till the last breath, till we breathe the last. And how can we safeguard this? In times of fitna and days we are going through, the age we are going through, where fitna is surrounding us, one of the most important and the best and the easiest way is to connect ourselves with the correct people and to stay in right company. When a person is in the right environment, when he's in the right company, inshallah, everything is smooth. As long as the fish is in the ocean, in the sea, is swimming. He'll get his food, he'll be swimming smoothly. But the moment the fish is taken out of his environment, the will start to shake. The moment we are in the correct environment, our iman will be safeguarded, our iman will be protected. But the moment we go out from that environment, we go in the wrong environment, our iman will become at risk. Our iman will become shaky. That's why those parents who decide to send their children to university, to send them abroad to work, etc., they should be very mindful first. That have I given them adequate reserves and adequate understanding in terms of how important a good company and good environment is? As I know, okay, they go to pursue the world and they pursue it at the cost of losing their iman. And it is happening. It is happening on a scale where people go university and irtidat is happening. Atheism is taking place. And one of the causes is that parents have not given their children sufficient upbringing and sufficient emphasis for good company and a good environment. When a person loses or goes far from deen, he uses wrong environment and wrong company. They fall in wrong company, they fall in wrong environment, and then slowly it takes toll on their deen. So it's very important that we have our first and foremost fikr should be of the hereafter. If you have fikr for the akhirah, Allah will make everything happen. And even if your son does not get a degree in this world, and even if he doesn't get the lavish life of this world, or doesn't get the luxury of this life, he's living in a rented house, kya ho gaya? So what if he lives in a rented house? Those people who have bought houses and those who live in rented house, what's the difference? What is the difference? The only difference is this person is paying monthly, £400 monthly for the next 20 years. This person has paid upfront £200,000, he doesn't have to pay for the next 20 years. When they both die, this is not his house, this is not his house. But if he went down the route of taking a mortgage, then he's got a burden to carry. And this person stayed in a rented house just to preserve himself from mortgage, he's got no burden in the hereafter. This person went down the route of university and at that cost he lost his iman. And this person, to preserve his iman, didn't go to university and he worked in Tesco, stacking shelves. But one day they're going to die, 60 years, 50, 70 years. What's the end result? He'll have all the luxuries and lavishes of the hereafter. And if this person lost his iman, he's got doom forever. He's lost everything forever. That's why, very important. Good company, wherever you get good company, wherever there is durus taking place, wherever there is mention of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these are all good places. These are all good environment. This is where our iman gets boosted. This is where we get himmat. And I'm going to carry on. And this is what we need. We just need to die on iman. We just need to bust our last breath on iman. وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيكَ الْيَقِينَ. Allah says, worship Allah. وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ till when? حَتَّى يَأْتِيكَ الْيَقِينَ. Until yaqeen comes, death comes. You see angels, you see farishta coming down. Just hold on till then. And for us to hold on till then, what do you have to do? We need to practice and stay firm on deen. And to practice and stay firm on deen, what do we need? We need good environment and good company. If you're in a good environment and good company, inshallah, the zeal, the urge to carry on praying namaz will be there. The urge to zikr, the urge to pray Quran will be there. The moment you go away from this company, then all this will start to fade away and start to erode. Then it will become difficult to pray namaz. Before you were punctual on namaz going to a masjid, now to pray namaz at home will become difficult. Then namaz will become qaza. Then to make qaza will become difficult. Then the whole thought of namaz will also. That's why it's very important, especially in this day and age, to stay in good company. And wherever you find good company, take it as a very good enamet and don't take it for granted. Make sure you come and spend time and you realize, okay, whenever you go from place of good company, place of good environment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a booster. This will be a vitamin booster in your heart. This will be an energy drink in your heart, your iman. And you will feel, no, need to tug on, need to hold on. And inshallah, Allah will help you and you will hold on. But till we die. Once you die, but after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open all the doors of rahmat and mercy, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the correct understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to act upon what's been mentioned and what's been heard. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah bil alamin wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Astaghfirullah.